Welcome back, welcome back, welcome back to not just another episode, but also the first episode of the year and the first episode of season two. I am so grateful, I want to say, first and foremost, to my audience, to those who have listened, to those who have shared. Without you, there is no podcast, and that we are able to continue this podcast and have a second season. As I am no stranger to podcasting, so this is not my first rodeo at being a podcast or even a radio show host. And every time we begin something new, every time we start a new adventure, there's always an unknown. There's always an unknown. And so I'm grateful that I have people in my life who are willing to share this with their friends, their coworkers, their family members, with their community. And I'm also grateful for my guests. I've had many esteemed guests on the podcast this past season, and we will continue to have the highest quality of guests. And we're going to be streamlining our content a bit more this year, because one of the things that I do is I look at the statistics and I look at what are the episodes that people really lean into? What are the episodes that are most listened to when we publish them? And so I have noticed some things. And so stay tuned, because we will be streamlining our episodes to really cover more of what you liked, what you listened to the most, what was most downloaded, and what was most engaged when we posted in our various social media communities. Now, if you have an idea for a podcast topic that you want specifically to be heard on this podcast, remembering that this is Behind Beliefs, Behaviors in the Brain, it is a communication podcast. We talk about communication and leadership, psychological safety, cultivating trust, all of the ins and outs of both verbal and nonverbal communication, about beliefs and how about trauma, about how our brain impacts all of that and how trauma impacts all of that. And so as you're listening to the podcast this season, if there's some topic that we haven't covered that you'd like us to go deeper into, that maybe we hadn't even thought of, please make sure that you email us on any of the platforms, on LinkedIn, comment on YouTube, comment on the podcast platform itself, and let us know what you would like to hear more of, because I am listening. I am listening. Okay. If you have a guest that you would like to see on the podcast that you think would align with our topics and our values, please, again, reach out. We want to hear your voice. All right. Now, with that, I thought it was appropriate to end season one with both the topics of love, with Jasmine Bellamy being one of our guests that led that conversation, and then with the topic of self-examination, because we are entering a very interesting time right now in our nation, in our world, and there is a lot of unknown that's happening. But unknown in of itself is not a new thing that we encounter in our lives on a regular basis. It is something that universally we are dealing with at a very critical level right now, though. So I want to talk a little bit about today the unknown. How do we move forward in the unknown? Now, for many people, the unknown automatically brings a space of doubt and sometimes even fear. And if we think about why that is, and we think about how the brain works, we feel more secure when we know what's going to happen. And thinking about it from a survival context, many times when there's an unknown, the brain can actually lock that as potential danger. Now, the unknown is a funny little thing, because by itself, the unknown is neither good nor bad. However, Because of our filters, because of cognitive filtering, oftentimes we clock the unknown as something to be feared, as something that's dangerous. Now, this is something that could be an anthropological thing, or it could be a socialized thing, or it could be a combination of the two. But by itself, the unknown carries no value except for the value. But by and large, the unknown by itself carries no meaning beyond the meaning that we place on it. Now, I understand that in the past, when something has been unknown, followed by something that maybe has been scary or something that has been not what we have planned, or followed by an assault of some kind, psychological, emotional, or even physical, what happens is that gets coded in our bodies as if we had known we could have prepared. Take the pandemic, for example. There was a lot of unknown that we experienced inside of the pandemic. I'll give you an example. Maybe about 10 years ago here in Atlanta, what a lot of us refer to as snowpocalypse. Now, if you live in the area or around the area, you may remember this. It was a day in which we had a major ice storm. But what happened was the ice storm happened so suddenly and so fast that people were unprepared. And there ended up being a lot of people who were stranded on highways, on roads, who couldn't get to their families, who it was actually very traumatic for a lot of people. And I fortunately myself had serendipitously gotten myself home. I had just found out that I was expecting my son, and I wasn't feeling that well that morning, and I didn't have any patients on my schedule, and I just felt this urge to go home rather than sit in my office and wait for someone to schedule. And so I ended up being at home and taking care of myself and my well-being when all of this began to happen. So I was actually very fortunate. However, this was the unexpected. It was a very unexpected turn of events, and it happened very quickly. And there was a lot of unknown, that there was a lot of chaos and sort of mayhem that came as a result of this unknown, this ice storm that just ended up on Atlanta very suddenly. And it was unfortunate that during that time, it happened so, because Atlanta doesn't get a lot of snow or ice, that we didn't have in the city enough support to be able to manage the roads. Over several days, people were taking people into their homes, people were trying to find their way to warmth and safety. And if you think about that as a whole experience, that is going to be encoded in many people's memories, both somatic memories and mental memories, as trauma. And that was such an unknown. And so, what happens when there are unexpected events and when there's an unknown is that it really signals danger to the amygdala, to the brain. And so, it's understandable why unknown would activate fear in someone. However, context is decisive. And when we only look at unknown from a place of fear, we miss the opportunity to see it from a place of power and creation and even beauty. And so, what is the mind shift that needs to occur in order to recognize that in the unknown lies a blank slate with which we can create something powerful, something beautiful, and something transformational? Now, I don't know what that is, because guess what? It's unknown. But when you think about the unknown from a different place, when we move beyond fear, doesn't mean we won't experience the fear. And I'm not suggesting that we won't experience fear inside of the unknown at some point. And when we can recognize the fear for what it is, an emotion, and we can also start to look at how else can we see the unknown other than something to be feared? How else can we see the unknown rather than something bad or something ominous? I'll share with you that there has been a lot of unknown inside of my career path. And I have worked with so many clients, mostly physicians, who have had these circumstances that have put them in a place of complete unknown, where they didn't know if they would potentially practice medicine again, where they potentially didn't know if they might be able to find a position that would be their ideal position, whether they just didn't know what the next step was for them. It was complete and utter unknown. And they would come to me with this fear and despair. And one of the things that we would do when we work together is to be able to turn that fear and despair into curiosity about, well, what could this mean? What opportunity could be available if we were to look at this as a blank slate to create rather than an unknown to be feared? And inside of shifting the context, I had physicians who not only found their ideal next careers, next jobs, but created whole entire lives that they never thought were going to be possible because they went from being at the effect of a circumstance to putting themselves at the source of the circumstance, at the source of their life, asking themselves, what can I do in this circumstance that would empower me in this moment? What is the next right thing to do in order to create the life that I truly want? What would the me in the future that has already solved this problem be saying to me right now? Or how would the me that has already solved this problem be processing it? These are some of the questions that you can begin to ask yourself to really shift the mind from the unknown is scary to the unknown, from a place of fear and from a place of being paralyzed to a place of power. And so as we move into 2025, as we moved into the unknown of this year, there are many things about the year and what's coming in the days ahead that are out of our control. There are many things that feel scary, that feel chaotic. There may be many things that feel scary. What can we effectively put ourselves at the source of? Not from a place of fear, but from a place of finding empowerment, finding community, finding love, finding self examination, finding our power to create from the space of blank slate. What can we do? What is the opportunity that we haven't yet seen inside of the unknown? And when we can dig deep and begin to see that, then it'll help us to move more powerfully into the days to come. Whether this is inside of your organization, inside of a specific role, inside of your personal life, your personal finances, inside of your family dynamic, or just inside of what's next for you, ask yourself these questions and allow yourself to really examine deeply what's your values, what's important to you, what the specific fears are that you can potentially move past to see what the opportunity is that you personally have control over, knowing that we don't have control over everything, but that you can actually put yourself at the source of so that you can move forward in a powerful way. Now, if this has been helpful, please share this episode with a friend, a colleague, and a family member, because I think it's important that we begin to take this context moving into the year of the unknown. And if you think about it, every day is unknown. Every week is unknown. Every month is unknown, regardless of what's going on globally. And we wake up each day, we know what we know, but we move powerfully inside of an unknown every single day without possibly even realizing how much of an unknown we're moving forward. So that's to say that we can have our power. We can move in faith. We can find possibility and beauty inside of this thing called the unknown. All right? So that's the order of the week, is to self-examine and find power and beauty in the unknown at whatever level you're looking. And you don't remember that you don't have to do this alone. Remember that there are people around you, there are community, whether you have access to them or not, that have a like thought and like mind that can pull you forward and empower you. So as you move forward in this examination, maybe do this in community, maybe do this with family, maybe do this with a group, but find the power and the beauty in the unknown and hold that as you move forward in the days ahead. I'm looking forward to this year. It is a milestone year for me inside of this world, this community, and I'm looking forward to celebrating that milestone in the coming months. And so until the next time, please share this episode with a friend, with a colleague, with a family member, with your community. And I look forward to sharing season 2 with you. But until the next one, you all stay empowered.